This is Empire Sports Alliance, unfiltered. No fluff, no filters, just the real side of sports. We're talking athletes, coaches, agents, doctors, executives, the people behind the scenes who actually move the needle. From building careers to surviving the grind to winning off the field. This is where real conversations collide.
Welcome to another episode of Empire Sports Alliance Unfiltered. I'm Ronnie, I'm the wealth guy, and today I got John Welbourn, 10-year NFL veteran and founder, creator of Power Athlete. Welcome to the show, John.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. John, obviously we're going to be talking a little bit about, your business now, Power Athletes, but I would like to start the conversation, kind of walk us back when you got started with your career in professional sports or youth sports. How did you get started in football? Walk us all the way back, please.
It started a long time ago. I had two older brothers who played football, so it just kind of was something I just naturally matured into. But I didn't necessarily start playing football at a young age. I played baseball, I played basketball. I started boxing at a pretty young age. I got into martial arts when I was about 6. Started boxing when I was 10, and I really enjoyed that. I liked playing basketball. And it wasn't until I went to high school that I ended up deciding to go out and play football. And at that point, it was something that came pretty easy for the fact that it felt like fighting against people that didn't know how to fight. So I boxed my whole life and I knew how to use my hands. I had pretty good feet and I knew how to move through space. And then when I went out and played football, it was like just fighting against a bunch of unathletic dudes. So I ended up, I was 6 foot, 165 pounds, ran track and, wanted to be a hurdler and started lifting weights. And the next year I was 200 pounds and then I was grew, and then I was 230 pounds. And then, by the time I was a senior, I was like 6'4", 250 pounds.
This is in high school, right?
In high school. Yeah. So I was like 6 foot, 165. And, when I went to college, I think I was like 6'4", 250, 255. And then I grew 2 more inches in college. So I grew to like 6'6" and ended up, leaving college at about 310, which is where I played the majority of my NFL career. So it was something where, once I started training and playing football, I just kind of grew into it. And, it's kind of interesting now. I was watching some stuff on social media about a lot of these kids in high school, and there's like 6'5", 300 pounds in high school. Like I wasn't 300 pounds until I was probably in my 20s.
Why is that? How is that possible? I mean,
I don't know. I don't know if it's like access to information or what it was, but like, I think the kids it's crazy to me that there's kids in high school now that are as big as I was during my NFL career. Now, obviously the package looks a lot different. Sure. I think, I squatted 6'10" when I was 19. I benched 500 when I was 22. When I was 25 or 26, I was the only guy over 300 pounds under 10% body pod they'd ever tested in the body. So with body fat. And so, obviously, I was a big, strong dude and kind of matured into it. I think for a lot of these guys, they grew tall and, you got to weigh 300 pounds. And so they've just eaten their way to 300 pounds. Instead of like gotten bigger and trained and kind of had like this maturation process. Cause, to be a big, strong dude, it takes time. Like I can't imagine like having to have carried that weight at that age. So, fortunately I wasn't, I didn't have to. I remember, I was in Philadelphia. I think I was in my 3rd year and there was like a clothing store that was on Broad Street and like there was a tailor in there. And I think I went in there to like get like a suit altered. And I was standing there and this big black dude comes over to me and he's like, "Oh yeah, you play for the Eagles." And I'm like, "Yeah, I do play for the Eagles." And he goes, "Man, you don't look that big." And I was like, "All right, sweet."
That's always a good conversation starter.
Yeah. And then he's like, calls his son over and this big kid, the kid had to be like 6'7", 350 pounds. Like comes over and he's like, "My son's way bigger than you." And I was like, "This fucking kid is huge." And he was like 17 years old. And he's like, "Man, my son's way bigger than you. He could play in the NFL." And I think I told the guys, like, the only thing this kid's playing is diabetes. Like he just, type 2 diabetes. It just, like there's a lot of big fat dudes in the world. And being big and fat doesn't necessarily necessitate that you can play football. Being strong, being able to move through space and being athletic and pad level and strength and all those, like those are the intangibles, just being big. And I think the problem is because of social media and a lot of what we see on the internet, there's these kind of like little buckets, like, oh, everybody in the NFL's, 6'5", 300 plus pounds. So if I'm 6'5", 300, then that means I'm going to get to go play in the NFL. And what they have to remember is, very, very few guys get a chance to actually go do that job. And it's because of those intangibles and you have to train into it. Just being 300 pounds isn't going to,
it's
necessarily.
the 1% of 1%, right?
Yeah.
It really is.
But it's different now too. And you brought up the NIL.
Yeah.
with the NIL, like, and I had this conversation recently with one of the one of the young guys when I played at the Eagles. Scott Peters is the offensive
Oh
line
yeah.
coach for the Cincinnati Bengals now. And I talked to him a couple weeks ago, and he said, it's very, very different now in the NFL because we were all broke college students. We were $740 was my scholarship check. My parents kicked me an extra 300, so I had about $1,040 a month to live on. And trying to be big and strong and weigh 300 pounds on $1,000 a month when your rent's 475, like you got $500 to spend on food. You become very creative. Like I would go to Costco, and you just basically figure out this equation of like, how can I be big and strong on like this limited budget? And he said, he goes, today in the NFL, it's very, very different because we were all broke college students, and you get to the NFL and there was a grit. He goes, you have to remember, most of the kids that are showing up to play in the NFL now are all multimillionaires because they all got paid at the NIL in college, and they would actually rather stay in college because, one, it's easier. It's less games. It's not nearly as competitive, and they can actually make money because once they get to the NFL, now all of a sudden you're talking about, 53 guys on a roster with, 17 or, 16 teams. Like it's not that many people. I mean, they have a much greater opportunity to make a lot of money in college because then they get to the NFL and it's, there's only a handful of guys get a chance to do that job.
So from a business perspective, though, in terms of like, because even though if they get paid in college, right, from a nice NIL contract, that doesn't necessarily mean you're ever going to make it to the NFL either, right?
No, there's a good chance none of those guys will.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of people, and this is, I did a podcast very recently with Robert Gallery, who was his number 2 overall.
Iowa, right? Yeah. Raiders.
Iowa. Yeah. Yeah. Played for the Raiders.
Yep.
And there's a pretty interesting statistic. Since they started counting in the 1920s, about 30 to 35,000 guys have played in the NFL. A little over 1,000 guys have played longer than 4 years.
That's
in the last 100 years. And if you put up the 1,000 names, you would look and be like, oh yeah, I know every single one of those guys. So it's not that many people. So when you look at like the amount of guys that are playing college football, these teams are throwing around, these college teams. I mean, I live here in Texas, right? In Austin, UT, I think has got a payroll of like 43 million, which puts them at like an NFL roster. And, there's a good chance that most of those kids, when they're done playing, will never play in the NFL. And if they show up, they might play for a little bit. It's just not one of those jobs that a lot of people can do. And, there's a lot of guys that, are okay, decent college players that just never get a chance to play in the NFL. So I think that it's great that the NIL guys are making the money they are. And I saw a pretty cool story. There was a guy that was in minicamp with the Browns. He was able to petition to get an extra year of eligibility. He left the NFL and went back to college because he had the opportunity to make a ton more money in college than to be a fringe backup making the minimum in the NFL.
Again, I work with folks on the business side from a wealth management perspective, and I think you have to look at it more from a career planning perspective. I think the fact of the matter is, as you just said, a lot of them are not going to play professional football, yet they have an opportunity at a very young age to set themselves up for success. Again, if they start a business, whatever they do, they still obviously have to, somewhat of a start them from a collegiate perspective, which might help them. But in terms of if they can make some more money on the college side of things, that might just help and boost their business, whatever they're going to do.
I think that is probably the smartest way to do it. I just wish that they had put some protections in for the college kids. Like what they should have done, and this is at least hindsight 2020, what I think would have been valuable, is if they had taken those, like whatever these kids, like, hey, they're going to get paid X. Hopefully they have people around them that look at this money as like, some form of an annuity. We're going to put this thing into a fund and, give you a small stipend and you're going to have this money going forward, opposed from just stroking a check or a check for a kid for a couple $1 million and being like, all right, you're 18 years old. You got a couple $1 million in your bank account. Fucking do your best or do your worst, And I wish that they put some like protections in place to be like, all right, you know what? We're not going to hand this money directly to you or your family. Let's put it into a fund that maybe when you're 21, 22, 25, I was involved in a lawsuit. My daughter got attacked by my neighbor's dog and we ended up going through this deal. And when the settlement happened, they took the settlement money and we had.
So you did a structured settlement then, like a market-based one? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, that's what I felt like they should do for a lot of these kids. Now, of course they won't, but it would be good that, hopefully when these kids are in their 20s and 30s, that money that they made still is continuing to work for them and they have access to it, But unfortunately, even in the NFL, what is it? Like 80% of the guys are broke within 3 years.
Yeah, I just, and based on my experience, again, from a business perspective, but also for having people on this podcast, younger folks that, all of a sudden they get an NIL deal, they get, signed even for a practice squad. Their phone goes off the hook, right? Every, second cousin, friend from high school and all that stuff. There's an immense psychological pressure in terms of like, oh, all of a sudden they're getting hit up by people that, again, don't necessarily have their best interest at heart per se, but see maybe an opportunity for themselves. So there's just a lot of different, ways, that they're getting pulled in different directions, so to speak. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's not like they're giving, I mean, even in the NFL, right? Like they don't really
yeah,
give financial planning and, I mean, it's just,
no,
yeah. I mean, and then hopefully, I mean, with as much information available today, there should be, I mean, I know if I was in a situation where my kids were, in that same position, I would step in and be like, all right, like, let's be intelligent about this.
yeah,
Like, this isn't the only money you're going to make in your life, but like this money allows you to start a lot farther down, the continuum if we do this intelligently, and it's
yeah,
like, so for me with my NFL stuff, I played. And then when I retired from the NFL, I actually, this is wild, like while I got hurt in 2008 and I retired in 2009. And as I was rehabbing my knee on the couch in 2008, I got headhunted to work for CrossFit. So Greg Glassman, who started CrossFit, called me on the
yeah,
phone and actually headhunted me to work for them. So I ended up accepting a job while before I even retired from the NFL and I was
yeah.
working. And I remember when we had a tryout to go with the Baltimore Ravens, Ozzie Smith told me, they offered me some really shitty deal. And I was like, dude,
You said real shitty deal?
well, yeah, it was, I'd been a starter my entire NFL career and all
Yeah,
of a sudden I'm without a contract. And so I went in there for a workout and they basically offered me like this like veteran minimum with like a bunch of incentives. And I was like, dude, this is a bullshit contract. And he's like, this is good money. You'll never make this money in your life. Like you'll never
oh,
make six figures. And I was like, fuck you. So I went home, I
yeah,
took that job. And that first year we ended up, making, you know, uh, shit, not $1 million. We pretty
cl-
close.
close
So
to it.
yeah, I mean, but I also went on the road, started, and I worked for CrossFit. We taught 36 seminars around the globe. I
Yeah,
basically traveled every weekend, started my company, and basically the beginnings of what what Power Athlete evolved from those early days,
yeah.
and really have been working nonstop since I retired from the NFL. So, never taking like, like I go on vacation, but I never go on vacation. I don't think I've
Right.
never gone a day without working since I retired from the NFL in 2009.
Well, it
And
seems
it's
like
just
you like it, so that's good.
yeah, no, well, I like to work. Like, I go on vacation and I want to go drive around and do stuff. Like I'm not like the type of person to like sit around and don't do shit. Like I
Yeah.
just always have to be working and working on new things. And like I always look at it like you don't know when opportunity is going to present itself. So it helps to have a lot of irons in the fire and
That's
really decide what you want to focus on. And then when you kind of figure out what you want to do, you just go 100 miles an hour. You don't half-ass things.
Well,
And I
I
think
just think you're bringing up a good point in terms of even for young athletes, right? To think that way, to think broader than just the sport of football, to actually have in mind, hey, there might be another way, there might be another route. I might not make this, but you
yeah,
need to do the career planning ahead of time. Like I feel like that's for again collegiate athletes as well as people that are playing, where it's like, don't wait because that, as you mentioned initially, that career is fairly short lived.
yeah.
Even if you're great, right? But if you're done at 33, let's say, you have another 30 years in the workforce, you got to do something. You want to
Yeah,
plan.
but the problem is, and this I fell prey to this in the NFL. It was crazy. I remember I was 29 years old. Right, the season ended, and then my
Yep.
birthday's in the off season. I turned 30, and you would have thought that I started rotting. Like I was 29, everybody was happy. The minute I turned 30, they were acting like I was rotting and going to die soon.
Yeah.
And it was. I mean, it's changed a lot now since Tom Brady played into his 40s, and like it was just a
Yep.
really interesting thing. But I think in my mind, I figured your life ended at 30, so I didn't realize that I retired at like 33 and you have the next 50 years of your life to live. And what are you going to do?
Yes.
And you're going to have to reinvent yourself and you can live many, many lifetimes in the case of one life. Right. So I did, that one life ended and I rebooted and started another life. And like, you're allowed to reinvent yourself and do new things. And, it really just requires you to be malleable and intelligent and, hopefully, not a complete fucking idiot and, decide on what you want to do with
That's not
yourself.
always that easy to accomplish.
No, it's sometimes difficult. I mean, for me, so a little bit different. Like when I went to college, I had a ton of scholarship offers,
You
but
went to
I
Cal,
never
right?
thought about. Yeah, I went to Berkeley. Yeah,
Yep.
so I took trips to SC, UCLA, Colorado, and Nebraska is where my five main trips were. But I had
Huh.
some like 100 scholarship offers, and the reason I chose to go to Cal wasn't because of the football. I went there because it was the best school I could get into, because in my mind, I wasn't focusing on playing in the NFL. I didn't even think like that wasn't even on my radar. I was just stoked that I got a college scholarship to go to a school that there was no fucking way I was going to get into academically. Like the valedictorian in my high school didn't get into Berkeley, and they had like a 1600 SAT. So I was like, oh shit, like they're going to not only pay me to go here, I got to play football, but I get to go to school. And I'm like, done. So when I got there, I was like, all right, how many degrees can I get? So I graduated in 4 years with a degree in rhetoric, and then I did my master's work in education for my 5th year. And then I applied for a scholarship to go to law school. So they had they still have it. It's called the Adrian Cragen Scholarship. It's for a 4-year Cal Letterman to go to law school at Berkeley. So that was what I was applying to go do. And while I was on this track, all of a sudden, the guys that I'm playing against every day in practice are getting drafted in the NFL. Like I played against, and I'm in practice against Reagan Upshaw and Dwayne Clemens. And like all these dudes that are like, top 10 draft picks in the NFL. So all of a sudden I'm watching NFL Sunday because I'm watching my friends, and they're out there killing people on Sundays.
Sorry, real quick. Did you play with Kyle Bowler when he was a quarterback?
No, he was after me.
He was after you.
Yeah, like Tart Glenn, Tony Gonzalez, Reagan Upshaw, Dwayne Clemens, like all these dudes were first round draft picks. And these are like guys that I'm playing with. And I'm like, wait a minute, they're not much better than me. Yeah. So then all of a sudden I'm like, well, man, maybe I could do this NFL thing. So I ended up getting drafted second pick in the 4th round to the Eagles, and went in and started as a rookie, and then proceeded to start for the next, 9 years of my NFL career.
Who was that? Donovan McNabb? Who were you blocking for?
Yeah. Drafted the same year as Donovan McNabb.
Oh, okay.
And
wait, you played in the Super Bowl in 2002 then, right? Against the Pats?
No, so the Eagles went to the Super Bowl in 2004. I played in 3 NFC championship games. The year that they played in the Super Bowl, I went to go play for the Chiefs.
My bad. That's the Bucs that actually, you were in that game. I'm sorry to bring that up, right? But that NFC championship game.
I know. We did, like, that was our year, man. And that was a shitty deal, and the Bucs ended up going on. But yeah, I mean, it was like the NFL, it was an incredible experience. Any former players that were like, oh, if I knew now, I wouldn't go do it. Fuck them. I love doing it. It was by far one of the greatest experiences. And I was sad the day I didn't get to do it.
You call bullshit on that, right? That's just that. It's easier hindsight to say that now.
Yeah, it is. And then they're like, oh, if I knew the damage and this and this. I'm like, fuck that, dude. Knowing all that I do, I would still go back and do it in a heartbeat.
Yes.
And it was the most fun you could ever have in life. The ability to do that job and to do it at a high level and do it with precision and the dedication and just to be successful. I can't imagine doing that job and not being successful, but that would seem like a fucking deal. But to play at the level at which I did, and to be very surgical about how I did it was extremely gratifying. And I look back on it with such fond memories.
Yeah, no, that's, again, what about the camaraderie in the locker room? I could just always feel like I played hockey, growing up, and it's just that you're not going to have that same feeling in a conference room, I feel like. So
no.
A little bit about that.
And the day it leaves, you either have to go out and create it in new ways. And I think that's why guys get lonely and, kill themselves and bad things happen. I mean, I think it's really just not necessarily, because here's the thing. Like, you're in this situation and you have these friends and you have this community, and then one day you show up and they lock the door on you and tell you to fuck off and leave. I mean, so when I was my final year, when I was playing with the Patriots, I got hurt in the last preseason game, but I had never been cut during my NFL career. So I just didn't say anything. Like I ended up hurting my knee, but I was like, all right, you know what? I'll just not say anything. I'll go after the first week. I'll say something, and once I'm vested. Well, they ended up calling me like 2 minutes before 5 for the cut and said, hey, we got to release you today to make a roster move, but we're going to re-sign you tomorrow. So I want you to hang around. So they released me. And then the next day they went to re-sign me, but I had to go back through a physical, and they ended up figuring out that my knee was fucked up and they couldn't re-sign me. And so I'm like leaving the doctor's office, going over the physical. They call me on the phone. We can't re-sign you. I drive back to the facility and like go put my code in, and the code doesn't work. So I hit the button, and the guy like comes out with like a little like brown box with like my shoulder pads and is like, here you go, slams the door. And I'm like, I guess I didn't even get a chance to go in there and get my shoes. I just threw all my shit away. So at that point, get the fuck out. And then at that point, you got to figure out like, what do I do? And I went home and flew home. They got me a ticket. I flew home. I went to, I think I got home. I went to bed, and I remember I woke up pretty early at like 6 o'clock, and I kind of like would always just pop out of bed and start my day. I kind of just laid there for like a couple hours, didn't like, obviously not fucking around on my phone, just kind of laid there. And it's like, what do I want to do in this life? I mean, like that was what I just kept asking myself. And what I should have probably done is I probably should have gone down. I should have like gone and bought like a, I don't know, travel van and gone and driven around America for the next 2 years and lived in
Sure.
national parks and had adventures and done cool shit and written a great American novel. But I think I was still a little rattled when that guy told me you'll never make six figures when you're done. And I think in my mind, I was like, fuck this guy. I'm going to go make money and I'm going to prove these fucking people wrong.
We talk about Ozzie Smith, GM for the Ravens, right? Which most of them, I'm a Jets fan, as you could see. So, consider like he's like this phenomenal this and that. But I just feel like it's interesting.
He's a real piece of shit.
Okay, there you go. So now we have, that's what I was getting at. So because there is a business aspect to this that I don't think people get that are not in those shoes and your shoes really understand, to where like, hey, you were great one day, now get the fuck out of here the next. Like you're not worth anything to us.
Well, yeah, but this is fascinating too, right? Like football is one of those sports that you, like. So this is also what we were talking about. It's a real, like, NFL football is a very unique thing in that either you can do it or you can't. And if you can't do it, you're there for like a day. They give you a cup of coffee and they fucking leave. Or if you can do it, you can do it for 10 years or 15 years, whatever it is. And there's nobody in the middle. There's very few people that can't do it on day one that all of a sudden 3 years later they can. You either can or you can't.
Yeah.
And
pretty quick.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I came in for mini camp and I was like the third string left tackle. And I left mini camp, and when we came back for OTAs, I was the starting right tackle. And I remember walking in and I was like, where are those old guys? Because I'm like, my locker was around all these old guys. Like there was all like vacant lockers. And I'm like, where all those old guys go? And they're like, you're the starter. And I'm like, what? How am I the fucking starter? And they were like, well, no, you're the starter. You can play. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm the starter. But in the same vein, at the end of your career, I think what happens is the injuries accumulate. And I know this to be the fact because, we've had a good friend on the podcast, a guy named Dr. Craig Bueller, who does something called AMET, Activated Muscle Integration Technique out of Kaysville, Utah. And Dr. Bueller works with like the best athletes in the world. He's the guy that worked with Carl Malone and John Stockton, allowed them to play into their 40s. And what happens is that over time, through all the injuries, your body just starts shutting down and muscles just start shutting down, pathways start shutting down. And you get to the point where you're so injured that your body can no longer respond the way that you want. And it's kind of happens like all of a sudden you can play and then something happens and you physically can't do the job the way that you used to. And it was like this weird kind of splinter in my mind where I'm like, man, like I was so much more athletic before, like just basic things that I used to be able to do are now a struggle. And I couldn't figure out why. And it wasn't until I went to go work with Dr. Bueller and he figured out that like, oh, here's, basically the body starts shutting down, muscle stops shutting down, and you can't display athleticism the way they used to. And the problem is the best athletes in the world, everybody gets hurt, just find a way to create compensation patterns to keep playing. And then they get to the point where like one more injury happens and it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. And that effectively what happened to me in my 10th year when I was at the Patriots, I got hurt. And when I went into training camp, like something was off. Like I wasn't able to do what I wanted to. And then when I got hurt, I knew that.
You felt that right away? Like you got on the pitch and you're like,
something's wrong. And I was like, well, you know what? I can just fucking play through it. I've always been able to play, right? I've been a starter for my entire career. And then when I got hurt, all of a sudden, like my knee I had surgery like a couple of years previous. I got scoped on a Monday and played on a Sunday. And now all of a sudden my knee gets scoped and it's like 3 months later and I can't get the inflammation out of my knee. And like things aren't working and I just felt broken. And I like had this like weird feeling where I was like, man, I felt like I broke my toys. Like I broke, like something was broken inside and I couldn't figure it out. Like I knew something was wrong, but I just physically could not do what I wanted to. Like it was really strange. Like my body was always, I could get into my stance. I could move fast. I could do all these things and move fluid. And then all of a sudden I couldn't do those anymore. And I didn't know why. And it wasn't until I met Dr. Bueller and working with him that I ended up kind of regaining all this. It was a couple of years after I retired. At that point, I was like, was already working and doing everything and building this company that I built. So, but a lot of that has been, mentoring and helping other people kind of get past this. But if I had met Dr. Bueller or understood that earlier in my NFL career and when I consult and, mentor young NFL players or other athletes, I make sure to like add this into it. But I think there's a very, very real pathway for these young athletes to make sure that they have longevity through their entire career. And the day they retire, they're not as broken.
Yeah. So that has changed vastly though. If you think just even like the 90s into like what we got today, right? What's available to these athletes in an NFL, even in a college locker room is that it's night and day, I would imagine, from like the 90s, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was very fortunate to play in what I view as the last real kind of like what was real football. I mean, I played in that
Oh, I want to hear more about that too, but go ahead. Sorry.
no, it's true. I mean, after 2009, after that last CBA, they basically, changed football forever, where you'll never see the violence of that you did see in those
Yeah.
earlier years. So I played right at the tail end of like what I view as like, when they turn on, you can still see it. Like when they turn on the highlights of the NFL and they show all the big hits and they show all that, that's from a bygone era. That's the era I played in. The NFL today is not the same NFL. Like the helmets are lighter. They put protections in. They can't hit the same way. They find players. Like they have created a much less violent, less physical, less
Oh
demanding
yeah.
game because they had to. I mean, they're paying these guys millions. I mean, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of
Yeah.
dollars to go out and do this job. They're not going to go out and like, they're paying, $500 million to, a guy. The last thing they want to do is have somebody go out there and hurt him. So I think the money got so big that they realized like, dude, there's so few guys that can do this job. The money's so big and we don't have an endless supply
Yeah.
that we have to start taking care of our players. And, we went from being like sacrificial lambs to sacred. And now that we call them sacred cows.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're right. Obviously, salary started going up. Like you have to protect your investment, so to speak, because at the end of the day, I mean, I'm a fan, right? But this is as big of a business as it gets, right? Can you talk a little bit to that in terms of you kind of touched on it with some of experience with GMs and stuff, but kind of insight being in the NFL, again, the business aspect of it. And really, again, I see a lot of similarities to the corporate world where it's like, oh, we're this, we're that, we're a big family, yada, yada. Until the day you can't produce or they suspected you can't produce to the level that they want you to. And after then you're done. What was your experience?
Well, no, it's very true. I mean, what the teams are really great about is selling culture around the
Yes.
teams, right? Like, oh, you're a Jets fan, right?
Yeah.
And then you have these kind of movable pieces where, Aaron Rodgers, your quarterback, and this guy, but you were a Jets fan, you were a Joe Namath fan,
Yeah.
now you're still the fan. So what the teams have done is they spend all of their marketing dollars marketing the team because the team is what has longevity. You are a fan of the team. Now, what's pretty fascinating, and this has really come from social media, the teams did a very good job of curating the way the players were put out into the public, right? You got to remember, we wear helmets. There's certain people that they
Yes.
wanted to do, and they invested. But what's been amazing now is with social media and the way that like the death of like conventional media and conventional news and this, and with social media and the rise, these players have become so marquee, not because of the teams, but because of their own, their own
Brand,
power.
so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, look at Travis Kelce, right? Like Travis Kelce's a, good tight end. I mean, he gets hooked up with Taylor Swift. I mean, he's more powerful and that, and now all of a sudden, like he gets the Pfizer thing and the team's like, oh, fuck, man, we got to put a little bit of effort through. He's got like, his chick's like a self-made billionaire. The bad chick in music, he's up there as his wife. So it's pretty fascinating with podcasts and social media that guys who the teams would have never put at the forefront or invested in that would have like marginal have created these massive brands that now all of a sudden the teams have to take notice. And if anything, now they have to invest in these guys. Like, I was thinking of like Kittle and these guys with their wives and this whole thing. And like that, like it's literally, I mean, their wives have turned into influencers and they have followers and this, I mean, like the teams have almost become secondary where now because of social media, the fans have become fans of the individuals, which is what the teams never fucking wanted. Because
fantasy sports doesn't help with that either, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
right?
it was the same thing, right? Because now, like, you don't have to, like, if you're a Jets fan, I mean, you don't, like, you can follow the Jets, but like your fantasy players. So I think because of the rise of social media, what it's happened is that because like I said, the teams do such a good job of curating who they want and the imaging in this. Like if they don't want to put you out there or they only have a certain people, but like now guys with their massive social media followings and their wives and all this other shit are literally scuttling these teams and fucking making them look like shit.
Again, the teams, to your point, they can't be happy about that, right? Because, and then from a player perspective, in terms of preparation, we always say, hey, focus. If I look at the guy, even though, again, he's on the team that I hate the most with the Patriots and Tom Brady, but I also think he's the greatest of all time. And I think one of the things you always talked about is in terms of the focus, the absolute laser focus. It must have an impact on you guys if you have all this other shit going on, right?
Yeah.
How do you prepare for the game day then?
I think what you have to do is you have to compartmentalize everything. And I think the guys that are successful in the NFL are able to compartmentalize where they, understand, like, how do I put this, in an eloquent way? At the end of the day, you get paid to play football, right? You don't get
Yeah.
paid for all the bullshit. So if you don't go out and perform, all this shit goes away. So I think you get to the point where, like, all this media hoopla and all this other, your wife can be a social media influencer and drive cool cars and go on fun vacations. But if you can't do your fucking job and play at a high level, all this shit gets taken from you. So
Yes.
I think that there's a moment of sense of urgency where it's like, all right, like at the end of my day, all this stuff is true, but I can never get too far away from who I really am, which is I put my hand in the dirt and I get paid to fuck people up. That was it.
Yeah.
And I never made any illusions about who I was. I wasn't out there solving kids' cancer. I wasn't out there trying to, fucking give
Yeah.
glory to God. I wasn't out there trying to, like,
Mhm.
I don't know, fucking imagine that I'm something more than I was. At the end of the day, I was a dude that put my hand in the ground and got paid money to beat the shit out of people for 3 hours while people got drunk in white span.
Yes. That's a very nice way to put it,
Yeah.
John. You're
I
not
mean,
far off.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's it, right? Yeah, I mean, that was it. I got paid money to train in the off season, sharpen the blade, and then go
Yeah.
out and cut off heads and fuck people up on Sunday in white spandex in front of
Let's
fucking
talk a little
drunks.
bit more about that. You came in as a left tackle when you were drafted? Because you
Yeah,
played tackle and guard, right?
yeah, I played tackle in college, and then when I came in, they had me play tackle my rookie year, and then my second year they moved me to guard, and then I played guard the whole time I was at the Eagles, and then I was always a guard, and then when I went to the Chiefs, they asked me to play tackle again, and I played there until I think my ninth year, and then I played guard again when Will Shields retired. So I always was a much better guard than a tackle, but I was fairly athletic, so I could play tackle,
Yeah.
but I technically always played out of position playing tackle.
Can you explain people a little bit in terms of like that's not that easy, playing from guards and then left, right side versus, again, playing the tackle position?
It's schizophrenic. So what happens at guard is the game happens very quickly, right? So if I'm playing guard, and I'll take it from like pass pro, for example,
Sure.
right? So there's a guy either in a 2, a 3-eye, or a wide 3. So he's fairly like on my body, and like, the ball snaps and we got a 1-on-1 fist fight. At tackle, the guy could be tight on me, he could be wide on me, he could be fucking 10 feet outside of me. And I have to basically go out there and play basketball and play 1-on-1 basketball and keep him away from which would be the quarterback. So the fight happens a lot faster and is a lot more violent. The other one's a little bit slower and requires a little bit more finesse. That's
What
it.
did you prefer? Did you prefer any particular position?
If we're going to fight, I want to fight quickly. I don't like I was able to play tackle and I did a decent job at it, but I was a much better guard. I appreciated, I liked playing inside. I liked the games. I liked that piece. I liked the fight happening quick, and I liked being closer to the ball. That way I could see what was happening. So I just,
you ever play center? Any snaps at center at all? Or
no. I center's the ultimate crutch position, which means that like you snap the ball and there's always somebody there to help you. So centers are what I call them. I just call them crutch boys. They always need somebody to help them. And when they do get on an island all by themselves, they fucking complain. So that's why, with Kelsey and this, and they're talking about what a great center he is. I'm like, he never blocks anybody one-on-one, and then they fucking pull him out and he gets to run around, dude. Being center is a fucking crutch boy position.
Yeah, you're talking to his brother. You're talking to the ex-center for the Eagles. Okay, yeah. Okay. Did you, obviously, outspoken, did you ever have, any arguments? I mean, I'm sure you have plenty of arguments with the old lineman. How does that work? Does it ever get
No. For the most part, everybody's a smartass.
Yeah.
And, and if people are dumb, they want to get into battle of wits. I'm more than happy to get into battle of wits. As my Berkeley education allows me to. But I think, the one thing that the NFL taught me, and this is either, I can't tell if this is good or bad in business. It taught me that I didn't have to like everybody I worked with, right? So in the NFL, this has probably hurt me in business a little bit because I'll tend to work with people a little bit longer than I should, for the fact that I might not like you as an individual, but as long as we're all moving in the right direction, I can work with you. And I think because of that, I just naturally assume there's a lot of guys that you play with who maybe you don't like. Like, one of the big things for me, I was single during my NFL career. Like, if you were married with kids, I thought it was weird if you were out there running around on your family. I'm not my deal is I don't have any problem with that. Like, if you want to run the streets and you want to go out and party and bang chicks and whatever, do that. Just be single. The last thing, I just don't like to lie about shit, and I don't want to be nefarious. And I learned long ago, and I actually, you'd appreciate this. There was an interview with John Gotti when he was on trial for the mob boss stuff. And they got up there and they remember the prosecutor was asking him all these questions and he was answering them. And finally she stopped. She goes, Mr. Gotti, we've never had a man of your, stature in the mob be this honest with us. And he goes, why is that? He goes, well, most people lie. He goes, I don't lie. Do you know why I don't lie? Because people lie out of fear. And I don't fear you motherfuckers. So I got no problem telling the truth. I heard that and I was like, that's the best thing I ever heard. The only people that have to lie are the people that are scared. right?
That's
So
pretty
I don't
straight.
like to do anything where I put myself in a situation where I might potentially have to fucking lie about something. So I just found it was a lot easier to be honest. And it was weird for me to play with or work with guys who, had families or whatever and wanted to go out and run the streets and do a bunch of crazy shit. And I remember being like, dude, like, don't ever ask me to lie for you and don't put me in those situations.
Yeah.
And I just think it was disingenuous. I feel like as an individual, especially as a man, like, like do what you want. Don't apologize for it, but like, don't also fucking, live
Yeah.
alternate weird lives. So a lot of
Yeah.
guys like were a little nefarious and maybe live some weird lives. And I just, I think part of the problem too, and this is
Yeah.
probably some I've kind of evolved into. So as a rhetoric major, for those of you guys that don't know, I was like a English philosophy major with a rhetorical approach, right? So I read the classics. I think the problem is I got so steeped in like the Stoics and a lot of this like early philosophy, a lot of the Marcus Aurelius and a lot of stuff that's super trendy now to put on social media. People find a quote and then want to be all esoteric with it. But like that was what I studied and what I read. And the problem is a lot of that early stuff was so black and white. Marcus Aurelius, don't argue about what a good man is, just be a good man. And
Yeah.
I think the problem is when I was so black and white about who I was that it became difficult to play in the NFL with so many shades of gray, whether it be with the front office or people, like everything
Yeah.
was a deception. And, hey, we're going to redo your contract or we're going to do this on a handshake. And then they don't do it. And you're like, we fucking shook hands. We agreed to it. That's
Does
what
that
we're
happen a lot? Like,
Yeah. Oh,
I'm
yeah.
big on that in terms of that
Yeah,
should
no, I
mean
mean, the
something.
dude, unless it's in writing. And, and I think I was so young and so, black and white and honest and like, my word means something, not realizing that like in business, if you don't see it in fucking writing, it's not like I don't believe anything until I see it in writing now.
Right.
Like you
Did you
might
work
tell me
with an
something.
agent?
Oh yeah. I mean, even with agents and teams, I
Yeah.
mean, even to this day, when I work with people,
Yeah.
and I have employees or read contracts, like we can sit here and talk and negotiate, but until I see those numbers on a page and somebody inks your deal and there's some legal ramifications for you to not do it, I don't fucking believe it.
Yeah. Well, you're probably better off that way because
Yeah, no,
that's
I mean,
majority of the times. Yeah.
dude, well, I mean, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. There's a lot of people that want to do stuff. And unfortunately, and that's where I get back to people. I mean, even to this day, I tell people, I'm like, hey, dude, I know what you agreed to. And like, I do my best, like for whatever it is, like, I've to my own detriment and that's taken money out of my pocket. Usually if I say something and I give you my word, I will follow through on it. Even if I lose money, most people, if their word requires them to lose even a penny or a dollar, they will not do it because it's out of their best interest. And I think in business, people will always do what's in their best interest, regardless of whether or not their word matters something or not. And, you can either choose to work with people or they can't. But unfortunately in business, like not everybody has the same ethics as you do. And so you just have to
Right.
kind of realize that like, hey man, this all sounds great. Sign your name on the line. Let's get something in writing and then we can move forward.
Yeah. I mean, after all the talk, shouldn't be a problem then, right?
Yeah.
Unless,
Yeah.
again, it was all just that talk.
Unless they're going to bullshit you. So
Yeah.
I think the other thing too, which, I also learned fairly early on is I usually think everything's bullshit and then work backwards. Right. Which is, I think a lot of people are a lot of dreamers and they get super excited like,
Yeah.
oh, this supplement's going to change my life or this or this or this. I just look at everything as bullshit and then they get to walk backwards. Like, I mean, we've done podcasts and this and people want to push technologies and ice bath and recovery and all this. I just look at everything as like, all right, everything's nonsense until you can prove to me it's not, more so than believing everything is great. And
Actual
then
results. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Hey,
I mean, it's just a lot easier way to live your life if you're always looking at everything like, all right, you know what? If I start from the point like I don't buy into it, you have to prove it to me. I think we get a lot farther.
Yeah. And I want to talk more about power athletes. Just one last question, a couple of questions on the football side of things. Were there any particular D linemen that you hated, wanted to play against, any of that stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I was very fortunate to play against a lot of the best guys to ever play the game, with Strahan and Warren Sapp and,
Yeah.
we were talking about Leroy Glover earlier today. And,
Yeah.
I mean, first NFL started guard was against a guy named Leon Lett. I mean, I played against the best in the game to ever do it. And was very fortunate every week to go against those guys. And I loved it. I mean, playing against John Randall, it's great too, to like watch NFL kind of like highlights and diff, and you'll show these guys killing people. I'm like, oh, I played against every one of those guys. So no, I mean, I don't have anything negative to say about any of them for the most part. I really enjoyed doing that job and I really enjoyed going against the best people in the world. It was like, there's nothing else like it. It's almost as if the rest of your life, the volume just gets turned down.
Yeah. Man, I like Mike Strahan. I just didn't like that he actually got that sack. I got the record there for a while over Mark Gastineau, but that's a
Yeah,
personal thing. So
yeah.
I think Mark Gastineau actually saw Brett Favre a couple of years ago and gave him a lot of shit for that, giving that up.
Yeah, I think Gastineau is a few sandwiches short of a picnic. I've heard him interviewed. He's got a lot of issues. You
Really?
know, yeah. Well, here's the thing, dude. Like, I'm always like once you do this job, I feel like it's like you do the job, your time ends, and you get a chance to go on and live a new life. Like that's why I said,
Mhm.
like you get a chance to live many lifetimes in the course of this one. And I'm always nervous when I see guys who at age 60s or even 70s are still trying to be the same person they were in their 20s and 30s. And
Yeah.
like, Gaston on those guys, like, what has he done since then? Like, I'm like, he's still like, you're upset about this thing, dude. Like, you got the sack record in the fucking 80s. And
Yeah.
you're mad that like Strahan in the early 2000s, it's been fucking 25 years. Give it up.
I've never been a sack leader, so I don't know how it feels. So
I don't know, dude. It seems weird.
yeah.
But like, I mean, you're also, I don't know, dude. I like amazing, but like to be butthurt about something like that, who cares?
Yeah, you just said there's bigger things. You're saying, hey,
Yeah.
move on.
Fantasy football has never been done like this until now. Introducing Elite Legacy Leagues, the first platform that combines NFL and college football fantasy into one franchise. Real-time live draft boards, dynasty and keeper leagues, a full salary cap, and a full NCAA development league where you scout, draft, and develop college players before promoting them straight to your NFL roster. One platform, two leagues, endless possibilities. No more boring redrafts, no more limited settings, no more settling. This is your franchise, your legacy. Elite Legacy Leagues is live now. Head to EliteLegacyLeagues.com, sign up, and start drafting with your crew today. The future of fantasy football starts here.
But
Yeah.
now, in terms of for you, life after football. So you founded Power Athlete, right? So can you tell us a little bit more? Obviously, I looked at the website in terms of it's all about like what is it? What do you do on a daily now in terms of training people, et cetera?
Yeah. So really what we started was, we help people develop fitness and wellness technologies. I mean, it was really the way this whole thing started. So we were teaching
Yeah.
seminars for CrossFit, and it kind of evolved in. And Power Athlete really was about military contracting and helping people develop fitness and wellness technologies. And
Yeah.
we came on and helped develop an app called Train Heroic, and did a bunch of military contracting, which we still do with like SEAL Team 6, Naval Special Warfare. And it was, we did 18th Airborne Corps, which was like 90,000 troops. And so we did all this contracting, and that's kind of Power Athlete evolved, and it evolved into education, online programming, and helping people develop kind of, like fitness technology, different, workout delivery systems and whatnot. So that's really what we do. And I certify coaches and, train athletes and do a bunch of consulting work. And yeah, that's what I do.
But you offer the same type of like, again, even though they're not athletes, somebody, let's just say like runs a business, et cetera, but wants to kind of train like an athlete, right? You have different like, ways in terms of going about it. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. Yeah. So what I did is, when we started, we were certifying coaches, and I kept getting emails asking people for training programs. And I was like, well, why not just come to the seminar and learn to coach, and you can figure out your own program. And over time, people just wanted the programming piece. And then I got approached by this company, Train Heroic, that asked me to be their big, like, hey, can you help us develop our technology and be a driver for this? So we ended up creating training programs to help them develop the app. And instead of writing a program, or the way I write programs is based off of what I call archetypes. Like, who am I designing a program for? Because the problem is these people that are doing programs, I'm never going to meet them. So I use the physiology and the principles that I created within Power Athlete, which is based on what I call my applied athleticism model.
Yeah.
And we develop training programs for specific archetypes. Like, you got to put on muscle. You want to be more athletic. You're combatives and grappling. We have stuff for the military. All these different kind of training programs are at a different kind of, seasons of a lifetime. And we ended up putting all this stuff together and then helping Train Heroic develop. And, they just recently got, acquired by Garmin for like 300 mil. And we've been working with, I've been working with the two former founders of Train Heroic to actually develop a new training program, or a new training system that's called Farron, which is actually going to launch here in the next couple of weeks. And so, that's what we do. We come on as power users and help people develop, these kind of online fitness wellness technologies.
What do you see as the biggest, illusions when people start working out and all that stuff? Is it like the idea in terms of where they're gonna be, how they're gonna approach it? What's it from a workout, nutrition? Where do you see the biggest issues from a worker?
So the greatest marker for success is consistency. The
Yeah.
person that can train with the greatest relative intensity over time is the one who makes their goals. The person that can, if you got to lose weight, the person that can eat in caloric restriction the longest is the one that's going to lose the most weight. If you want to put on muscle, there's, other different things. I think it just comes down to boring consistency. I don't think that the world is ready or is willing to do the boring basics consistently for a long period of time. If you
Yeah.
want to be big and strong, like, you think about Milo's bull, Milo was little, the bull was little. And as he got bigger, he picked up the bull every day. The bull got bigger and Milo got bigger. It's the same analogy for life. It's literally a ruthless, boring consistency of just doing the basics every single day until you get where you're going. And I think what happens is most people give up before they get to where they really want. They just know they just have to go a little bit farther. Like I said, I consult for a guy here in Austin who's a billionaire, and he likes to buy shit. And he hires me to go in and do all the kind of AARs and evaluations for any of the tech he wants to buy. And one of the things I've asked him numerous times is, obviously to make the amount of money he does is pretty interesting. And I love those origin stories. That's what I do on my own podcast.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I'm like, how many people or how many deals or how many things have you been in where if the guy had just gone a little bit farther, he would have been successful, or he got out too early? And he must have for like 3 hours told me every one of these stories about this guy that he had worked with had developed hyaluronic acid to put into a skincare cream. And it wasn't going. And at like the last minute, he sells it. All of a sudden it gets, there was an infomercial with it and the thing exploded. Like 2 weeks before he sold the company, like there was an infomercial that his marketing people had already put in play that ended up running on late night TV, and hyaluronic acid fucking became like the new thing for like face care stuff. And if the guy had just waited 2 more weeks, he would have been multi-millionaire. He gave me like story after story. And the analogy is just keep going.
Right.
And go as far as you can and just keep taking another step. And he's like, if you consistently just keep pushing ahead, success will eventually get knocked down. And he goes, he's like, I think most people just stop moving. They just stop going. They just give up before like right as they are. And there's a cool picture you can find where it shows like this guy like tunneling out of a prison, and like the wall is right there, and he just has to go like one more little move the dirt, and he'll get out, and he stops and he sits down like, I've gone far enough. You just got to go one more shovel. So I think it's just consistency and just having a relentless, ruthless fucking desire just to keep going and not give up.
I couldn't agree more. But do you feel like this is different in terms of like in today's world, in today's,
Yeah, of course.
like
Yeah,
newer society? Again, I think that's on as an athlete as well as in business.
well, it's because the illusion of social media and everything around us is everybody's so much more successful than me.
Yeah.
Right. You turn on and it's like, you see, this person's got 500,000 followers and this, glamorous life. And, you look at it like, oh, this person's younger than me. They're so much more successful than me. They've obviously made it. I should just give up. Like I think that's the whole perception. And like, I think the one thing that people forget is success takes a long time. Very few people get success. Like, you hear these stories where it's like, all of a sudden, I posted one YouTube video and next thing I know, I was Mr. Beast. And it's like, dude, like that happens like once in a lifetime. For like most people, like consistency of doing the same thing over and over and over again, moving towards your goal is really like success takes a long time. Like very few people are like flash in the pan. It's just success takes a long time. And like, if you're not successful, who's to say if you don't keep moving, you will be successful? I think people just give up too soon.
Yeah. There's no question about it. I think, in terms of like what makes a great athlete, I think that's exactly it. You're always going to have adversity. There's going to be stuff that's not going to go your way. I think, okay, if you look at a guy, again, you played with Tom Brady, right? When you were there. If you look, I always remember the picture that when he comes out of like Michigan, right? They have this like from a draft and all that stuff. They have the picture there. And the guy just kept working, right? He was a 6th round pick. He just kept working. Like, I just don't think, I think like in business as well as when I see from an athletic perspective, I think it's less and less that you see that in people, this consistency, because it's really, as you said, it's fucking boring, but it's also pretty simple. So
no, it's just, yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't have the staying power just to basically just boringly just keep moving forward. So I don't know. He's got to keep going. But yeah, I mean, Tom Brady's a great example of that. Like the guy's, I mean, yeah, fuck. I mean, you can't argue with it.
Did you have any interactions that you recall with this guy?
Oh yeah, I've known Tom. I went to school with his sister at Cal, and I knew
Yeah.
Tom before I ever went to the Patriots.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when I got there, he was, obviously, the person he is. So I mean, he, that organization definitely was his organization, and I thought that the dynamic between him and Belichick was very interesting. I knew there was no doubt in my mind that the success of the Patriots was Tom Brady and not Bill Belichick. So the fact that Belichick fucking after Brady left, fucking scuttled, and now has some fucking weird girlfriend in North Carolina. I mean, it's poetic justice because he is an absolute insufferable human being to work with.
Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
I cannot, this is years of discussions. What you just said, I appreciate you saying that because again, as a Jets fan, but I always gave Tom Brady credit because to me, it changes everything. If you have a field general this way.
And then, bringing Vrabel back. I mean, Vrabel.
Yes.
We were, obviously when I played there, Babel and I were tight. And then also, in playing in the years leading up to that, he was a rep for the NFLPA. So we used to hang out in Hawaii, and I always liked Vrabel. So I'm happy to see his success. But, talk about a dude. I mean, fuck, dude, like getting caught running around on your wife and all that crazy shit. Like, fuck.
I just don't know why especially if you have that level of scrutiny around you, that position.
Oh, well, but I think his wife was like his high school sweetheart. She's probably ugly as sin. So maybe maybe this is the deal they had. I don't fucking know, but I don't know, dude. Like that whole thing is just, it's too much for me. Like I just can't life's hard enough without me fucking myself at every turn.
Yes.
And like putting yourself and doing all that shady shit and cloak and dagger and here and running around. You got wife and kids. Like it's just fucking gross.
Yeah,
it's too much.
You're putting so much on your plate for no particular reason whatsoever.
No, I'm like searching for simplicity in life. Like, how do I get less shit? How do I be less fucking in demand? How do I do this? And like all this looks is like complexity. It's like people that are like, oh, I have 20 cars. I'm like, oh fuck, that's a lot of cars. Right. I was like, Robert Gallery's got a car collection. He's like, oh, I got 12 cars. I'm like,
you can only drive one.
Yeah, it's a lot of maintenance. I mean, he's got dope cars and he's got a good building. So I'm like, man, it's cool. But like, I'm one of the interesting kind of observations is my old neighbor died. He was in his 90s. And the day he died, I live out in a ranch in Texas, and he's our ranch neighbor. And the day he died, they pulled a big, dumped a big, what is it, like trash container, like one of those big, rollbacks right in his yard. And his family showed up and they threw away all of his shit, everything. He had a lifetime, I'd been to his house and all the stuff. He was like into collecting clocks and all this, had all the, threw everything just fucking in the dumpster. And I realized, I was like, dude, all that happens is you live this life and you die, and then somebody has to throw your shit away. And I think if people realized how quickly people forgot your name, I don't think you give two fucks at all about what people think of you. And, and then also you spend all this whole lifetime accumulating all this shit to die and have somebody throw it away. So I don't know. I really go back, and you're going to laugh at this, but I always really enjoyed Chuck Palahniuk's Fight Club. And I obviously saw the movie, read the books, numerous times. And I always go back to a little bit of that Tyler Durden, right? Like the shit you own ends up owning you. And what's really important, and, like your health, your wellness, being fit, combatives, like whatever it is. But I think the problem is people in today's world, it's easier just to watch the world go by through their phone than it is to go out and actually do cool shit and be your own superhero. So I'm always trying to, live the best and most rich life that I can and influence people in the most positive way, and hopefully not, sit there and watch the world go by, which feels like what social media is. Everybody else is having a great time while you're just sitting in your home watching it go by.
Yeah. Couldn't, again, there's a lot of good stuff that came with the technology. There's a lot of bad stuff that came with it too. So,
well, it's funny. I love that, all these Instagram chicks that basically are just hanging out in the beach in a bikini and with incredible bodies. But I just always laugh, those girls didn't pay to get there. There's just some rich dude who's floating the bill to take him to Bali for a fuck.
The reality of things.
Yeah, the reality of things. I'm like, yeah, these girls you got a million Instagram followers, dude, and you're there because some guy's stroking you a check, right? So yeah, you have to be humble with all this stuff.
Well, John, hey, I again never had an offensive lineman on, so I appreciate
Well,
the candor.
I can't speak for others, but I like to think that offensive linemen are usually intelligent and witty, but I could also just be me. I could just
I've
be
never,
the individual.
everybody always says those are the coolest dudes in the room. It's just like, you want to get along with them. You don't necessarily, as a running back especially, you don't want to call them out and stuff, but they're the coolest dudes in the room. So good for you
Awesome.
guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. I appreciate it, John. Again, thanks for making the time. And yeah, thank you.
All right. So
Bye.
see you.